Sexton here on the program. We talked to one from the defensive side of the ice. Now we get to talk to one on the offensive side of the ice. So the Anaheim, the NHL trade deadline, in my opinion, like it was a really good turnaround. I mean, the fact that you see Nazem Kadri go back to Colorado, the Anaheim Ducks really were up and onto the phones. When you see a lot of that with trade deadline marks, because a lot of them is teams in front offices, they're putting their chips together. They want to compete and to hoist Sir Stanley, but it takes a lot of the right pieces and the capital to do so to acquire them. What make there's definitely going to be some competitive teams rising up from the bottom to come up to the top to really compete with the big dogs.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I followed it as well, and you saw some interesting stuff go down with Buffalo, and they've never been really in the mix the last however dozen years. So, and they were trying to make some moves to get their team a little bit stronger, and their back end of defensemen would have been incredible if they were able to add Parayko, but he declined to come. So then they have to go find somebody else. And you saw like Tyler Myers go to Dallas. So I think teams are seeing how Florida did it with the big defensemen and having at least 2 or 3 guys that are really big and really tough in front of their own net. And then build, obviously having like 1 or 2 guys that can run a power play on the back end. And you can see guys kind of go for the size, because that's what's been winning it. It seems like Colorado won it with speed, but Florida's kind of won it with grit and size over the last couple of years. So it's kind of a copycat league, and you can see teams trying to build their team a certain way, because playoff hockey is different a bit than the regular season.
Buffalo, speaking of them, because with making the moves as they did, I mean, this has been long years coming to where they're trying to break the long year curse to trying to get into the playoffs. They've tried several times and have come up empty up on it, and they've lost a lot of great players from Jack Eichel to, Okposo and many others. And yet you got Tage Thompson, who I absolutely loved watching, even in the Olympics. There's positives from all of it. When they got their core 4 defensemen, I felt they're going to be aggressive on defense. They're going to have the right guy that's going to be the sharpshooter at some point outside the wings. But you are going to control a lot of your time on the puck to keep the offense working to work out the goaltender and score the goals. So is this the year that Buffalo really does truthfully break this curse, or can anything happen as we get into the stretches? Because we're in March, and by the time that we get to April, May, it's a totally different beast out there.
Yeah, I think there's a chance, but I also think that just getting the playoff experience for their young guys is going to be huge for them. Just getting that first year of playoff experience, where I wouldn't expect them to do a lot in the playoffs, although the East is kind of like, well, the playoff teams have been set for a while, it seems like. And I think Buffalo, they've had an incredible year. I think it's a good thing that they're playing well, but I think they're kind of peaking maybe it's a little too early, and that they may be a team to look to get, they may be an top seed coming in, but I think that if they don't, it's hard to keep that momentum all the way through the playoffs, especially when you're not a team that's made the playoffs in 16 years or so. So I wouldn't expect them to do a ton in the playoffs, but it's a huge win of a season for them. And it's a huge win to get guys a first round or a second round of playoffs. And then next year you can expect even more. But yeah, I mean, they've gotten rid of Sam Reinhart and Alex Tuck and the guys you mentioned. And those guys are all like top end players. So their fan base deserves this. And I'm sure they're going to really try to, make this year count, but they have a good future looking forward, which is probably what all is even, sweeter than what's happening right now.
So what a turn of events for the Anaheim Ducks. You've been in this organization and kind of how things are ran up from here. So this has been quite a while, because we know that they've been in rebuild mode. And when they traded away Trevor Zegras and such, I was like, how in the world now are they going to honestly end up building around with more of their youngsters and getting some veteran presences? Because I was like, when is John Gibson going to be out of here? Because we know he's been trying to look for a home for quite a while.
Yep.
If things weren't moving in this direction. But now I love McTavish. I love a lot of these youngsters. And now, because with Joel Canville, being there, I expected this to go a different route. I didn't expect this, Dan. Now I'm kind of excited for what's going to be brewing in the Pacific now.
Yeah, I think the Pacific is Obviously, it's the weakest division, but that's like great for the Ducks. They're going to get experience in the playoffs, and they could win a round. They're a wild card team. I mean, they're not just by the fact of standing, but like more so because of just the way they play. And I feel like some games I look at them and I think they're gonna roll and they get smoked. And then another game where I think they're gonna lose, they end up smoking the team. So I think they're really unpredictable, and that can be a good thing. But they're still super young. I think they're a team that, again, like Buffalo, probably doesn't do a ton in the playoffs, but their future's bright, and they have a lot of super good young pieces. And Joe Quenneville is a massive like upgrade at the coaching position, and they've already made the playoffs the first year that he's there. It's pretty impressive. And yeah, I mean, it's not hard to get guys to go play in Anaheim. So if they get a good team started, they can get guys to show up there and pick up free agents across the way, because it's just a beautiful place to play hockey.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, the West Coast, with the Kings, the Ducks, and when it gets interesting like that, that's where hockey really does become better for the sport itself, for the viewers. Final question before letting you go. You played in both the States and you played internationally. So watching the Olympics, winning the gold for Team USA, I mean, it was very meaningful to guys like Austin Matthews, Connor Hellebuck, who was by far the MVP in this whole thing. And then watching Jack Hughes score up that big goal that really was the moment. But here's the thing. I watched the faces of everyone in Canada. And to me personally, I could see the competitive nature. And I know how much that can really kind of be a tug of war in your mind a bit. Because one, you're representing your country proud and strong. But at the same time, you really are eager to win the goal. So when we come back into the NHL now, does this become motivation and fuel of fire for them and their regular teams, like i.e. Toronto, i.e. Winnipeg? Because Canada has yet to break the curse of over 30 years of winning a Stanley Cup, and now having them back in the Olympics, they got to get some juice up and in here to get over the top.
Yeah, I think when you look at like McDavid in Edmonton, he's a Canadian. He plays for a Canadian team that has a real chance every year. So there are tons of motivation, and as if he needed any more. I mean, the poor guy has obviously been on the wrong end. He's the best player in the world, and he's been on the wrong end of three huge games in the last couple of years. So, I mean, he's still the best. I mean, most fun guy to watch. So he doesn't need motivation. But yeah, I mean, as far as Toronto and Winnipeg, I mean, they're probably out of the picture a little bit. And then you look at Ottawa, like they're going to make the playoffs, but then they have an American like Brady Tkachuk who won the gold, and he plays on a Canadian team, which is causing all sorts of, issues up in Canada, because, they have this American guy that just, won the gold, and he's their captain. Same with Austin Matthews. So it's like, that's just stuff that's going to go away. And when the playoffs start, like, it'll be all hands on deck to win a Stanley Cup. And the Olympics is awesome, but the Stanley Cup's like the year-long thing that's like takes way longer and more work and planning. And the Olympics is like a one game, and like it's all or nothing. It's just a different kind of challenge, and it's awesome in its own right. But the Stanley Cup, I think at the end of the day, is everyone's going to be like, the more days that go by, the more they'll just be building towards winning the Stanley Cup. And those guys that lost are going to have more motivation, and the American guys are going to draw confidence from it and play better in the playoffs. So you're going to have guys getting motivation in Canada and guys that have confidence in America that they already won something this year. And if they win a Stanley Cup, it's kind of like maybe the pressure's off them a little bit to go win a Stanley Cup, and that might play into their favor, or maybe it won't. But that's what's going to be fun about getting the best on best back in the Olympics.
It's also even greater that when you have these players who are captains of their own teams, and so when they go and they're captaining, their country, they're taking that, leadership, that confidence, and they're bringing that back into the building of, look, we won the biggest stage in the world, but I want to bring that motivation here to now we can win with our organization and bring the cup right back to our home. And so it's got to be very meaningful for these big guys. And yeah, we'll see what happens, because the Stanley Cup, the best time of year. It's by far the hardest trophy next to the Vince Lombardi to win, because you're putting your bodies through so much duress, and all the more meaningful to drink that cold beverage out of the cup.
Absolutely. You couldn't say it any better. That's well said. And I believe that to be true too. And yeah, by the end of June, those guys are just beat up pretty good, but I mean, it's worth it at the end. And yeah, it's the most, that first round of the NHL playoffs is the most fun hockey to watch to me, because it's just action day by day and 4 games a day and more like afternoon to night. And it's incredibly fun to watch.
Love it, man. Appreciate you, Dan, for coming
Thank
on
you.
by here up and onto the show. Take care of yourself, and we'll see you soon.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Jake.
Absolutely. There you go, folks. Man, what a stacked lineup we had here today. Loved every bit of it here up onto the show, but we got to wrap it up here as we get ready for the next week. Really appreciate you guys for coming on by.